Guys, good Wednesday afternoon. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille Show. Thank you so much for joining us. We are live on every social media platform known to mankind. Of course, across the Charlottesville, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world here on the I Love CVille Network. Our friends at IMBS Medical Billing Services, our newest partner, IMBS Inc. You will hear their story tomorrow, how Ida Thornton, over 24 years ago, launched a business in her basement here in town. And now it has nearly a quarter of century of tenure and has the most market share in the medical billing services space here in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. Of course, Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine, a good partner of the show, and David and his wife Kirsty at Skooma Boutique Dispensary, the best dispensary in Charlottesville, Skooma Boutique Dispensary located next to Rapture. A lot to cover. We let you know first that Brazos Tacos is opening a second location in Barracks Road Shopping Center. I want to offer some perspective on that. We have a new restaurant, a sushi joint opening in Stonefield. We'll give you some perspective on that on the program. But the lead of the show is something that was dinging my phone left and right about, just after lunchtime yesterday. And Mark Woolley, the recently appointed interim city manager of Charlottesville, pieced out of a $200,000 plus job just before the job started. Now, we found from the Daily Progress and later Mayor Nakia Walker that Mark, Mr. Woolley, wrote a letter to Nakia Walker on November 23rd, so that was before Thanksgiving, thanking council for the job, but said, look, this is not for me, it's not an easy decision, and it's not the best situation for my family and for me personally. This is what I'm perplexed about, and what I will ask our very intelligent, very tall, red-headed friend here in a matter of moments. He takes the job, Mr. Woolley, about a month ago. And when he takes the job about a month ago and says, I can't wait to get to work in Charlottesville, Virginia, then he thinks about it and contemplates it and then backs out about a week or so, a little over a week before the job starts. So what goes on, or what transpires between Mr. Woolley saying yes to council and dealing with a fairly tough opening press conference where council, I thought, did a great job of managing perception, asking the tough questions of Mr. Woolley and his background from a professional standpoint. He's had some lawsuits brought against him, and he's had some short tenure at other positions, including Salt Lake City, Utah. But Councilor Snook said, look, let's get to this immediately in the initial press conference. And Mr. Woolley provided great intel and knowledge and answers on why he's caught some heat at previous gigs. So I'm like, this is smart. They're managing perception. They're highlighting from day one the previous beef Mr. Woolley has had with previous jurisdictions and employers. And I was very okay with the answers he gave, and I was excited to turn the corner or turn 2022 with some consistency with local government. Now we find out that before Thanksgiving, in fact, Woolley first notified Walker of his withdrawal verbally on Sunday, November 21, and then wrote a letter to council and to the mayor on November 23rd, which would be the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And we find out that he says, no, I don't want this job. The only thing that's transpired between him taking the job and him writing the resignation letter is two lawsuits. The lawsuit Chief Brackney and her attorney brought against City Hall, which I'll ask Dave Norris about here in 60 seconds, and the lawsuit that former city manager, we've very fondly have dubbed him T-Rich, Dr. Terrion Richardson. T-Rich, it's what we've dubbed him here. So two people are suing City Hall, a former city manager and a former police chief. That's the only thing that's transpired between Woolley taking the job and then saying, I don't want to be the city manager anymore. And then one of my friends who's in local government, someone I respect tremendously that we interact with on social media in a private message capacity, this particular individual and somebody else said, look, would you risk taking this job and being perhaps tangled in this web of litigation? Or would you say, no, let's let the current council get out of office and let this litigation be resolved before potentially going into the CEO spot of Charlottesville's city management. I'll ask Dave Norris about that. I thought it was very perplexing and weird, and the timing quite odd, and I'm going to offer this last perspective before we go to 2 restaurant topics and then Dave. Sam Sheridan, Lloyd Snook said on this show, the last time Lloyd Snook was on here, that the job was offered to Sam Sanders, excuse me, not Sheridan, but Sam Sanders. And Sam Sanders declined the job and said, I don't want anything to do with this. So now, since T. Rich resigned from CEO of Charlottesville City Management, of Charlottesville government, we've had JB, John Blair. We love Johnny Blair. Johnny Blair got a taste of interim city manager and said, good Lord, I need to go perhaps slightly down the professional totem pole and go from interim city manager of Charlottesville to city attorney at Stanton. I love you, John Blair. Love you, JB. Then Chip Boyles comes in, and Chip Boyles has a cup of coffee as a city manager before he's like, I got to get the heck out of here. And then council says, Sam, you're a deputy city manager. Why don't you take this job? And he's like, nah, I don't want this job. Then they offer it to Mark Woolley, who was on the short-term list for deputy city manager, and said, we're not going to give you the deputy city manager job, but here's the full-time city manager job, and he pieces out of the gig. So since T. Rich has left, we had John Blair and Chip Boyles, both had a cup of coffee as city manager, and then it was offered to Woolley and Sam Sanders, and both declined before the job even started. Now we're at square one. We'll try to navigate this with Dave Norris. 2 other items: props to Brazos Tacos, second location, Bricks Pizza, Barracks Road Shopping Center. Bricks Pizza had a $28,000 a month rent. I would imagine the Brazos folks have negotiated a better term than that, but an island pad unit in Barracks Road, the most popular shopping district, is not going to be cheap. They're going to have to sell a lot of tortillas, baby, to cover that overhead. And then the last piece of business, and then J-Dubs, we can get the cameras ready for the LeBron James of local government, Dave Norris. Akira Ramen and Sushi is now open in the Stovefield shops. If you like sushi and ramen, there's a new restaurant called Akira Ramen and Sushi that is now open at the shops at Stonefield, owned by a private equity firm in New York City. All right, studio camera, and then Dave Norris. First, Dave Norris, I enjoy seeing you. I enjoy doing this show and running into you around town. How have you been, my friend?
Jerry, I've been great. I've been super busy with an event I want to talk about that we're organizing for tomorrow, but I'm happy to chime in on some of this latest City Hall drama, which it is frustrating for anybody that wants to see the city sort of get back into a better direction. And we thought with this new interim city manager that things were going to quiet down a little bit, and I have no inside knowledge whatsoever about why he ended up turning down the job. You know, when he was first appointed, a lot of people were wondering if the council had done due diligence on him because of all the stuff in his background.
Checkered past.
But now I'm wondering if he did due diligence on us, you know, because none of the stuff with City Manager Richardson or Chief Brackney was necessary. I mean, the lawsuits were new developments, but all the sort of background in terms of their departure from the city was pretty common knowledge, and he should have known that there was some tension there and some controversy there that he was going to inherit. But so I don't know what happened with him. Maybe he got a better job elsewhere. Who knows?
Let me throw this to you here, and then we're going to get to the amazingly positive stuff that you're doing here. Terrion Richardson, Dr. Richardson, is suing the city.
Right.
Chief Brackney is suing the city. Mm-hmm. We have one counselor in Heather Hill who is legitimately involved in both lawsuits, like named in both lawsuits. When you were the mayor of Charlottesville and city council, were you ever concerned of legal exposure tied to lawsuits and litigation? And then the second part of the question is, what is the process of having attorney protection here? Yeah. Like, is Lisa Robertson expected to defend and represent, say, for example, Counselor Hill in both circumstances at no charge to Counselor Hill?
Yes, as long as the duties that Counselor Hill or any of the named defendants were performing, as long as those duties were, in the process of conducting their city council responsibilities and tasks, which it seems to have been, then yes, they would be covered by. Now, whether or not it's Lisa that actually takes on those cases, oftentimes what the city will do is they'll find outside counsel. And they'll seek funding from the city has insurance, legal insurance, liability insurance through Virginia Municipal League, and they'll get, so they'll often get those legal costs covered. But yes, it's a big burden. Even if Lisa herself isn't taking on those cases, she's going to have to manage those cases, and it's a big burden. And so, but no,
were you worried ever about that?
I only got sued once in my 8 years on city council by my good friend Jeff Fogel. He wasn't suing me; he was suing the city. But I was one of the counselors that was named in the lawsuit, and I did have to go and give a deposition. And he ended up winning that case. That was the case where we had prohibited people from panhandling on the cross streets on the downtown mall because we wanted drivers to be paying attention to the fact that they're crossing a pedestrian boulevard. And Jeff sued us, and he won that case.
It's kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, I know, but that's a whole other issue.
That's a whole other topic.
But that was the only time I ever got named in a lawsuit in my 8 years. But that was pretty minimal compared to some of the other lawsuits that more recent city councilors have been dealing with, including this most recent pair. So.
Do you think that they're best served having? I mean, I'm no lawyer, and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. But Dr. Richardson is naming Lisa Robertson in this lawsuit.
Right.
So I would think she would have to recuse herself as defending counselors if she's named in the lawsuit that Richardson's bringing against the city.
Sure. That would make sense, yeah.
Are they best served paying the dime on their own?
If I were them, I wouldn't. If I were them, I'd go with, and the other counselors had to deal with this with the statute lawsuits.
Right.
Most of them chose to go with the city's attorney, but I believe Bob Fenwick and maybe one other, but I know Bob Fenwick went with his own counsel for whatever reason. He certainly was able to access city legal support. But
does the city reimburse him there?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I don't
know how that works. But yeah, so if I were a counselor, I'd utilize the free legal help as opposed to going out and getting my own attorney, particularly, again, if it's performed in the course of doing your city council duties, it should be covered. And so, yeah, but it's, it's obviously anytime you're dealing with an employment lawsuit, there's all kinds of layers and there's all kinds of information requests, and there's going to be subpoenas left and right, and it's going to... Hopefully, they can avoid actually going to trial on either of those.
Which is the one that's most concerning for you? Scott Aaronworth, Virginia Beach, hello. Johnny Ornelas, El Mariachi owner, hello. Vanessa Parkhill, hello. Some questions for one of our favorite people, Dave Norris, coming in on the feed. Which one is most troublesome for you?
Well, if I were the city, I'd be most worried about Chief Brackney's lawsuit, or threatened lawsuit. I guess it's not an actual lawsuit yet, but... So because of some of the issues she's raised, and we've talked about this on the show before about, I think there's some merit to some of the claims that she's made. And so if I were the city, I'd be looking to try to avoid taking that to court, if at all possible. But I'm not in the city anymore, and I wish them well.
Where do we go from here? How does the city run without a city manager?
I think the answer is, to me, it's pretty apparent, is what they need, essentially a loaned executive kind of opportunity where if they can find, and I can think of several people off the top of my head, I'm sure you could too, Jerry.
I've often said your name.
Well, no, but thank you.
Who can you think of off the top of your head?
Well, I don't want to name names, but if any city councilor is watching and wants to pick my brain about people, I think there are people in this community right now who are running nonprofits or in the business world or in the university world or in other government operations here.
Is that Mike Murphy?
I'm not going to name names.
Okay.
But I think, when about 100 years ago, I was the chair of the board of the Charlottesville Redevelopment Housing Authority, and we had a good bit of turnover in our executive director role. And we essentially at one point said, look, let's just bring in somebody. We know they're not going to be a long-termer, but just bring them in for like 6 months to stabilize this ship. And the city loaned us Aubrey Watts, who was then the deputy city manager, for about 6 months. He came in, he righted the ship, got things moving in a better direction, cleaned house. I'm mixing in metaphors here, but and that's what I think the city needs to do now is find a known entity, somebody who knows this community, who has a proven track record in leading organizations. Again, I can think of several people off the top of my head, and just say, look, for 6 months, we need to borrow you from your current employer, and we'll give you back, and then during that time, do this national search for a permanent city manager. But there are people here that could do the job. I hate to see them contract out. I'm not even exactly sure what that looks like when they're talking about contracting out to some private company to manage the city in the meantime. Let's just bring somebody in who can do the job well. There are people here that could do it, and that would be my advice if anybody were to ask.
Do you think, people respect your advice, do you think that they would ever bring back Richardson or Brackney?
No, I'm not sure you'd want to go backwards. Okay. I think the answer...
She said she'd be willing to come back.
Brackney? Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the council's call. I don't want to weigh in on that. But I do think there are, in terms of the city manager job, there are people that could step in, with short notice and get things moving in a better direction.
But you would think that the permanent one should be hired with the next council on the dais.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, that's a month away. I mean, it's
right,
not that
so
far.
close.
Yeah.
So close.
Yep.
Dave Norris has questions coming in. We're going to get to the questions here shortly on the show. When you read that Woolley said, look, I don't want to come here, what was the first thing that went through your head?
I was shocked because it seemed like this was finally the end of the revolving door, at least for a little while.
Yeah.
And now the revolving door is still revolving. And so I was shocked. Again, I have no inside knowledge whatsoever. Haven't spoken with anybody on council in quite some time, or particularly about this issue, or specifically about this issue. So I don't know what happened behind the scenes. It could have been a personal issue with him. It could have been maybe got a better job elsewhere. Who knows? I mean, we can only speculate, till the sun goes down. But yeah.
Spencer Stevenson has this question for you. Jerry, ask your guest, how exactly hard is the job of city manager?
It's a challenging job. It's a pretty thankless job. You're essentially the CEO of the city of Charlottesville, which is not a small organization. I think last time I checked, that over 600 employees.
Yeah, $200+ million budget.
Right. So it's a big undertaking, and obviously it's a tough city to manage. The citizens have a lot of demands, rightfully so, on government, or put a lot of demands on government. But the pay is not bad. You've got great deputy city managers, good staff in City Hall. There are citizens and business owners and other elected officials and other local governments and others that are willing to step in and help out or offer support. So it's not impossible, but it's a big task.
Carol Thorpe, welcome to the program here. More comments coming in for Dave Norris. Ooh, this is an interesting comment. What do you make of Charlottesville PD, the University Police Department, expanding its policing footprint beyond UVA grounds?
Yeah, I think that's a little troubling to me that there's sort of mission creep happening there, and I think the university police sort of saw a void that. Given the turmoil in the Charlottesville Police Department, they wanted to make sure that the neighborhoods around the university are still getting serviced in terms of law enforcement support. So I understand the motivation behind it. Some of the rhetoric that's been used to justify it, though, I think is over the top. Like this huge crime wave around the university. I haven't seen any statistics to back that up. The idea that there's been this huge spike in crime around the university, I think if hopefully once things stabilize within the Charlottesville Police Department, we can go back to a sort of a normal scope of operations where the University Police Department is sort of focusing on their turf and the Charlottesville Police Department can do what it does.
Do you think this was the influence of having an undermanned Charlottesville Police Department, undermanned and underwoman, or do you think this was the political influence of UVA parents complaining to local government?
Right. I think it's all of the above.
All of the above.
Yeah. And again, once the word goes out to these UVA parents that their sons and daughters they were organized. Right. That they're somehow the victims of this big crime wave, which again, I haven't seen data to back up that idea, but parents are naturally protective of their children. That's what we do. You're a dad, I'm a dad. Like that's what we do. And so if you start to hear this, this fear mongering, if you will, or these whatever, not statistics, but if you start to hear this idea that there's a big crime wave, of course you're going to want to see what can be done to keep things safer. But it's if you have a university police department that's unaccountable to the Charlottesville community, patrolling the Charlottesville community, that's problematic.
Grayson Long's got a question for you. We love when you watch the program, Grayson. Jerry, please ask Dave Norris who he thinks the mayor is going to be. Who's going to be appointed mayor?
That's a great question. Again, I have no inside knowledge, but if I were a betting man, I would probably put my money on Juan Wade.
You think Juan Wade?
If I were a betting man. But again, I have no inside knowledge. But Juan is somebody who has led the school board. He's led organizations. He's a known commodity. I think he has a lot of support on the incoming council. If he wanted it, I'm guessing it's his.
Mark McKinney has got a question for you. You're a popular guy. Mark McKinney is from the Crozet Community Advisory Committee.
Sure.
And Mark says, are we at a point where an impartial assessment needs to be conducted on organizational dysfunction within city government? Almost a top to bottom review in order to rebuild public trust with all layers of city government.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea, particularly if it includes an assessment of the structure of city government itself, because as I've said on this show before and other people have said, I do think it's time to reassess the very structure of city government. I have argued that we should consider a model similar to the one that Richmond, Virginia adopted.
Strong mayor.
Right? Where you have you still have a city manager, but instead they're called a city administrator, still a full-time individual with expertise in city governance. But right now, the city manager in Charlottesville is not accountable to the people of Charlottesville directly. And so so you'd have a strong mayor who's elected by the people of Charlottesville who oversees the work of the city administrator. So you have sort of the best of both worlds. And I think that's a model we should consider. And so if there's this impartial assessment that's looking at how to improve city government, I'd want to make sure they're also looking at the structure of city government itself.
Gwendolyn Cassidy watching the show. I believe, are you in the Netherlands right now? I think she might be in the Netherlands, somewhere in Europe. She said, I just wrote about Dave in my Harvard term paper. Exceptional person and advocate for marginalized communities, especially the homeless. Thank you for commenting and offering that perspective. Carrie Maribel, welcome to the program. So we'll take some questions here from YouTube and Twitter in a matter of moments. This one, I don't think this is going to happen, but I got to ask it anyway because I love when the viewers and listeners comment. Is it time to dissolve the city into the county? I don't see that happening.
I don't see it happening. I'm not sure it's necessary at this point.
I agree.
Yeah. So that argument comes up periodically every few years about the city reverting to town status within the county of Albemarle. I just don't see that, particularly since the city is growing. That may make sense for cities that are dying and need to be able to draw on the tax base of the counties around them and can't really self-govern. Some would argue maybe we're not able to self-govern. I disagree, but we're not dying. Certainly, economically, the city is growing in population, growing its tax base. So I'm not sure, dissolving makes sense at this point.
This is from Jennifer, routinely watches the program. Jerry, ask your legacy question to your guest, Dave Norris. So the legacy question I often pose on the program is, how is we have two outgoing counselors in Walker and Hill. What will Walker and Hill's legacies be seen or be considered or be identified as down the road? And I think the legacies are very different. And I think where Jennifer's getting at is, how did the lawsuits and the interim city manager carousel impact the legacies of both? Your thoughts?
Well, I think the personnel issues are, in the grand scheme of things, not as important as the perspective they brought, the policy they've championed, the programs they've initiated. And so I think when you think of Mayor Walker, she's been a fierce champion for equity and social justice, and that's what I think she's going to be remembered for. And some people will remember her fondly for it, and some people not so fondly for it. But she's brought a perspective that I think was needed, is needed when it comes to looking at the needs of the whole community, particularly that part of the community that's been, it's gotten the shaft historically in Charlottesville, the black working class in particular. And I commend her for bringing that perspective and being a champion. And for people that are re-entering society after incarceration, she's been a true champion. She's been a champion for redeveloping our rundown public housing neighborhoods. So I think she's done a lot along those lines. Heather Hill is somebody that came in not necessarily with an ideological focus or a particular passion for any one cause. She was somebody that came in wanting to just make systems work better for the community, and I think she's brought a valuable perspective in that regard. Heather's one of those people, on every city council, there's one or two people that if you need something done in the city, if you need help with an issue, if you need somebody to kind of like nudge city staff to assist and get, sort of work through a bureaucratic logjam, Heather is one of those counselors, and she's been very responsive. She's known for her responsiveness. Again, some people have really appreciated Heather, some people not so much, and you're never going to please everybody. But I do think she's been diligent and hardworking, and that's going to be her legacy, is my guess.
How about this question? Scotty, I'm going to butcher your last name, so I'm going to call you Scotty B here. Is it important that the mayor of Charlottesville be an African American?
Oh, I mean, obviously that's great if so, but it's not. I don't think it's essential. I mean, but what you do need is a mayor who is going to be accountable to the whole community, not just any one segment of the community, and responsive to the whole community, and somebody who sees all of us as part of a whole, and that's not always easy, but I do think it's important.
I agree with that. I think Juan Wade is a potential strong front runner there. And he may have my pick too. Lloyd Snook has said on the show that he wouldn't mind being mayor. So time will tell what happens there. What do you make of the Brazos news?
Second location, exciting, yeah.
Right?
Those are good guys over Brazos,
Yeah.
and I love to see local businesses thrive and see them, creating a whole dining room experience over at Barracks Road. It's excellent. So I'm proud of them. Yeah.
How about this one from Brian saying, Jared, can you bring up the future land use map with Dave Norris?
Well, I mean, I think that's obviously been a very contentious issue, but I think council did the right thing in terms of keeping it moving in a certain direction. The devil's in the details,
right,
in terms of how it's implemented. There's certain parcels that are not going to end up zoned the way the map envisions them potentially being zoned, and that's okay. And but generally speaking, I like the idea that we're allowing for more creative urban infill in the city of Charlottesville, and it accomplishes several things simultaneously. There's a lot of demand for housing right now. It's going to help reduce housing prices, help increase the supply of affordable housing. It's going to help create more walkable neighborhoods, neighborhoods with more community amenities. So I think in general it's a positive direction, but again, I was talking to somebody the other day who just read me the riot act for not coming out and in full opposition to the flum because of the fact that certain streets and certain neighborhoods weren't in their mind fully consulted, and I understand that perspective. If you feel like this has come out of left field, but generally speaking, I think it's a good direction. Johnny
Ornelas, the owner of Guadalajara and El Mariachi, question for you.
Sure.
El Mariachi, guys, is absolutely fantastic. If you guys haven't had a chance to try it in Zion's Crossroads, it's excellent. He says, hello, Dave, would it help to break down the city manager position into department of 2 or 3 people, so if we have issues with one, the next person can easily step in? I believe that's how it's done,
that's
right?
Kind of
with the deputy city managers.
Yeah, that's over the last 5 or 10 years, that's sort of the direction. I think that's a great suggestion, and that is sort of the direction the city's been going in. It used to be that there was one city, when I was on city council, we had one city manager and one deputy city manager, and that was it. But over the last few years, they have been specializing, so I think there's actually technically 3 deputy city manager positions. One of them is vacant right now, but Sam Sanders and then Ashley Marshall, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
Are the 2 deputies, and they each oversee certain departments, and then they report to the now vacant city manager position. But yeah, I think that's the right direction, particularly as the city has grown and the city hall itself has grown.
So you're a likable guy. More questions for you. Jojo Robertson.
Yes.
So last time you were on the show, I asked if you would consider being the city manager. You said, that's not for me.
Right.
What would it take you to change your mind and take this role?
It's a moot point. I really do. I like the job I have now. I'm not in a position to leave my current job, and I think it's a moot point. I just think it's not something this council would even consider. But I'm flattered to be mentioned.
Isn't it crazy? Not crazy is not the right word. I mean, this is a job that with like the benefits and the compensation, I mean, we're talking darn near close to $250,000 a year.
Right.
Woolley was being offered $205K cash. Right.
Plus a lot of
plus the benefits.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking $250,000.
Yeah.
Is it not shocking to you that we can't find?
It is shocking.
It's shocking, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is that much money in this town. You're living like a king.
Right. And again, I think it's in part because they're using these headhunters these search firms who are looking for a very specific sort of candidate who has city management government experience, and I understand that. But as I've said on your show before, let's not limit ourselves to people who are only coming up from within sort of city bureaucracy elsewhere. Let's broaden our thinking about who could fill this role, either whether it's on a short-term basis or the long-term basis.
So you say maybe even go to the private sector?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Private sector, university, nonprofits, other layers of government. So let's not be, too singularly focused on people who are sort of on a city management track. I understand the reasoning for that, but right now we need somebody who's a good leader and a good manager of people and a good manager of systems. We can teach them the part about, government budgets versus private sector budgets or nonprofit budgets. But what we really need is that leader who can bring City Hall together and move us forward.
Kelsey has a question for you. I love it, guys. Keep them coming for former Mayor Dave Norris.
I want to make sure we get a chance to
talk
talk
about 100%. She asked this: has local government gotten more challenging or more difficult since you were in office?
I think it has gotten more challenging. I often joke about the fact, in my 8 years on city council, like when I think about things that were controversial then versus things that are controversial now, I feel like we had it pretty good. Like we spent months, I don't know if you remember, Jerry, we spent months here in the city of Charlottesville debating about what size brick to use when we were re-bricking the downtown mall. That was a heated issue.
I remember that.
And now we have Nazis invading, and now we have turmoil in the police department. Now it's much bigger issues.
What was the most complicated thing for you? Was it the Occupy Charlottesville stuff?
Not really.
Or was it comp plan?
No, it was the water supply issue.
Okay.
We were trying to figure out how to preserve our water supply without doing too much damage to the natural environment. And I lost that argument, but it was a very complicated issue that I did not even see coming when I ran for office. So it forced me to sort of get up to speed on water supply management, which is not my background. But and that was a very heated controversy for quite some time. But no, I mean, in general, I think things have gotten more complicated, particularly in the wake of August 2017. And so I applaud anybody that's willing to put themselves out there for a local office now, and whether that's on city council, planning commission, board of architecture, you name it. There's a lot of issues and a lot of demands from the citizenry, so bless them.
Dave, Matthew asks, get Dave's take on the McAuliffe-Youngkin governor race.
That's a great question. Yeah, obviously Youngkin had the
he ran a strategic
momentum.
Campaign.
He ran a good campaign.
Yeah.
He was brilliant. He sort of threaded the needle. I remember talking to I'm not friends necessarily, but friendly with a couple of his top aides, and I said early on, like, this is a really difficult task here, because if he's perceived as too far in the Trump camp, he's going to lose, because Trump is woefully unpopular here in the state of Virginia. But he also can't completely alienate, the Republican base. So he's got to maneuver.
He's got to appeal to the Republican base without alienating the more centric soccer moms,
the suburbanites,
suburban moms that vote left traditionally.
Yeah,
and he did that.
Yeah, I think he did it really
well. The education really helped him.
For McAuliffe to come out and say, parents should have no role in their kids' education, which I think I know where he's coming from. But that was a
and then he doubled down and tripled
down on it, right?
Yeah.
So and McAuliffe just never really got a whole lot of people energized, on the Democratic side. And so you had that. You had Youngkin running a good campaign on his end, McAuliffe not energizing his base. So you took a state that went 10 points for Biden, and the R's won it, and it was a slim victory, but still they won it. And so now Youngkin's already being talked about as presidential material.
I know.
I think it's hilarious.
He's not even in office yet.
But no, I mean, so I can't say I was totally surprised at the outcome. And I think there's obviously a lot of lessons to be learned there on both sides.
I would think, and I mentioned this on the show, and then we're going to get to a fantastic event that you have coming on.
Yeah.
The day or the strategy of utilizing Trump hatred for the former president is becoming less impactful because we're getting further and further away from Trump being in office. So that's one of the things I saw. Mm-hmm. The second strategy, when it comes down to it, voters today are leaning more socially liberal and fiscally conservative than ever before. I think the suburban soccer mom that was very pro-Democrat and voted D no matter what is now becoming much more centric in her ideology. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, Jerry. If you look at polling, though, when you talk about, for instance, some of the items in the president's new Build Back Better agenda actually poll very well across the board. When you talk about child care and improving Medicare and some of the other sort of Great Society, if you will, sort of program ideas that he's floating, which aren't necessarily fiscally conservative. But I think at the end of the day, people want government that works for them. They want the government that works, period. People are much more interested in bread and butter issues than we give them credit for. The Democrats ran out with all these sort of cudgels, these, all kinds of wedge issues. And honestly, I think a lot of parents in particular are like, we want our schools to be open for our kids. We want, we want good jobs to be able to sustain our households. We want like roads and public transportation that works. They're much more interested in like bread and butter stuff.
Right.
And Youngkin, I think, managed that dynamic pretty well. And he didn't come out. In fact, he deliberately downplayed issues, wedge issues on his side, like abortion and guns and things. And I think, even though he got some flack from the right on that, I think in terms of running a winning campaign in a purplish state like Virginia, that was a smart strategy.
Well said. 100% agree. This man has got a big-time event that he's a part of and helping organize.
Yes.
Thursday evening at the Paramount.
Tomorrow night at the Paramount. I don't know, Judah, if you can zoom in on this little poster here.
We can totally do that.
I don't know if you can see this or not.
Just a little bit high.
There you go. All right, so tomorrow night at the Paramount, we've got Corey Harris, who's a brilliant blues musician, has spent a lot of his life actually in and around Charlottesville, but has traveled all over the world, performed all over the world. One of the great blues musicians of our time. Also, dabbles in reggae and jazz, but he is performing his first Charlottesville performance in years. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. at the Paramount. We still have tickets available. Chahamba, which is the local African dance troupe, is opening for him. It's going to be a great night of music and dance. All of the proceeds from this event tomorrow benefit the Charlottesville Winneba Foundation, which is a cause that's near and dear to my heart, in support of the work that we do in Charlottesville's sister city of Winneba in Ghana. So we support hospitals, orphanages, schools, environmental conservation projects, fire safety efforts over in Winneba. We have a lot of collaborations with them that this concert will help to support. And so I really want to encourage people to come out. You can go on the Paramount website and buy your tickets. $25 per ticket. It's $35 at the door. So get your tickets before the show. It's going to be a wonderful night. And I'm going to break some news here on the I Love CVille Show.
Oh, we got some breaking news.
We got some breaking news. Jerry, I am 51 years old, Jerry. I've been
Today's your birthday?
No.
Oh.
I'm just saying I'm 51 years old. I've been in Charlottesville 27 years.
I genuinely would never have guessed you were 51.
You're a god.
I thought you were in your 40s.
Thank
you have
so
the
much.
energy and zest for life that I just like to be around.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. But my point being, I'm 51 years old. Okay. Never in my life have I ever had a cocktail named after something that I've worked on. So I'm very pleased to announce here live on the I Love CVille Show tomorrow night at the Paramount. the Paramount Bar is debuting a new specialty cocktail called the Sister City.
Oh!
And so you'll have a chance to try it out first tomorrow night if you come to the Corey Harris concert. It's pineapple juice, dark rum, a splash of club soda, and nutmeg.
That sounds delicious.
It's going to be a wonderful cocktail. Jerry.
Yeah.
So
you know I like cocktails.
I know you do.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to announce this on your show.
Thank you.
And in addition, Ghana is famous for their mangoes.
Okay.
The best mango you'll ever eat in your life is in Ghana. And so they're doing a frozen mango lemonade tomorrow night as well at the Paramount. So I wanted to make that announcement. And I also want to give a big plug to our lead sponsor for tomorrow night, Charlottesville Ballroom, over on McIntyre Plaza. Great folks at Charlottesville Ballroom. Thank you for sponsoring this event tomorrow night. We really appreciate your support. And thank you to the Paramount for hosting us, and for all the volunteers and donors that have made this possible. We're super excited. It's going to be a great night. Please come out and join us.
It's tomorrow night, guys. Michelle Juanita Tanner giving you some props on the program.
Michelle Tanner is one of the most dedicated volunteers that I've ever met, and she's been helping us left and right over the last few months on this event tomorrow night. So, Michelle, we love you. Thank you so much for everything you're doing. Cecilia Barber is another one I want to give a public thank you to. So it's a great team that we've pulled together to make this a big success.
Can you stay a couple more
Absolutely.
minutes? So you got a lot of stuff coming in here. So this one is coming from Stephanie. She says, Dave, will you be at Brazos as much as you were at Firefly?
Brazos does a good taco, man. And
great taco.
When they open up their new place, they'll have a whole dining room menu, and I think they have a bar there, if I understand. So yeah, that'll be a fun place to hang out. Maybe
if we see Dave wetting the whistle, where is he most likely going to be these days?
Yeah, I don't know. That's Firefly.
You still spreading them out, or is it?
Yeah, Firefly's in my neighborhood. Okay. Holly's in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Sometimes down at Rapture or Livery Stable or Miller's. Out and about. You and I have hoisted a few pints at Three Notch over the years, so I'm out and about.
I like it.
But tomorrow night I'll be at the Paramount trying the Sister City.
Very good job there. Nice segue. And tease right there from Dave Norris. Scott Bandy, he said, I tuned in further along in the program, but I still need to ask, given this development now with Woolley backing away from the city's interim managership, do you think, Dave, this will have an effect to re-energize movement for revision for Charlottesville to town status? You touched on this briefly.
Yeah.
And he goes, Kathy Galvin brought this up at least once during her term on council.
Yeah, I think, again, that makes sense for cities that are dying. We're not dying. We're thriving. I mean, obviously, we've had some challenges, but no, I don't see this. I don't see that in our future.
Yeah, I don't see town status in our future either. Someone wants to know your favorite pizza in town. How about that? Anything goes here on the I Love CVille show.
Well, I'm 28-year vegan, so
28-year vegan?
There's not a lot of vegan pizzas in Charlottesville. The best one that I've found is Mellow Mushroom, but I'd love to see more restaurants in Charlottesville offering vegan options. That'd be awesome.
There's a vegan spot opening in the old
Java. I saw that. I'm very excited. Check it out.
Yeah, very excited as well. So why don't we close with this? Anything else positive that you want to highlight in the community? Any other work? Any other influencers or stakeholders doing good stuff?
Well, I mean, Charlottesville, we've got so many people that are doing great things in Charlottesville, and it's. I really hope this new variant of COVID doesn't come and stifle a lot of the energy.
Are you booster?
I am booster.
I'm booster too.
Everybody get vaccinated. Everybody get boosted, because that's how we're going to get through this. And there's no other intervention that comes close in terms of helping us all to get through this. But what I was about to say is there's a lot of good music happening now. There's a lot of events like this wonderful event tomorrow night at the Paramount happening. There's live theaters coming back. Restaurants are coming back. So I don't want to. I can't think. There's no one in particular that comes to mind. But I love to see even in the midst of COVID, new restaurants popping up, restaurants expanding like Brazos. So it's a good time to be getting engaged. And I know it's been a rough couple years, but we're coming. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
I think
Jerry.
so too.
Yeah,
I feel bullish and positive.
I do too.
Wessam Allah Shakar.
I love Sam.
Okay, yes. Is that who that is?
Yes.
Sam?
Sam,
hello. He's giving you props.
Peace, Sam. We love you, Sam.
Sam's giving you some love. Multiple people giving him some love. Kara, welcome to the program. Dave, you are awesome.
Well, thank you, Jerry. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the chance to put a plug for our event tomorrow. And hopefully we'll see you there. Anybody that's watching, please come join us.
You know what we should do? The Dave Norris Show.
Oh, there you go.
A weekly talk show with Dave Norris. That would be great.
Don't you want ratings, Jerry?
No, that would be great. You are Ratings. I think his nickname is Mr. Ratings. My friend, thank you for everything you do. I can't wait to see you around town. I know the event tomorrow is going to be a smash hit, and I hope you have the best afternoon ever.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it. Judah, thank you for all the work you do as well.
Dave Norris, boys and girls. All right, more comments coming in here that I'll address myself as we let our friend Dave Norris go here at the network. So I want to touch a little bit more on the take care, Dave. Peace, buddy. On the city manager gig that we're touching. You know, I think the play now is to do a stopgap hire, and that stopgap hire. And to Dave's credit, he brought up a good point. Maybe the stopgap hire is from the university, nonprofit, or private sector, because the folks that have the experience working for jurisdictions elsewhere don't seem interested in a gig where active lawsuits are prevalent. And can you blame them? I mean, you look at the Richardson gig, the Richardson lawsuit, and in the Richardson lawsuit, our buddy T. Rich has named in this lawsuit Michael Payne, Cedar McGill, Lloyd Snook, Heather Hill, and Nakia Walker. So all the counselors, T. Rich is named. Hill and Walker are also separately listed as defendants along with attorney Lisa Robertson and city attorney John Blair. So interim city manager JB, friend of the program, named in the T. Rich lawsuit. And then we'll see what Brackney's going to do in her quest for a bag of $3 million from local gov. So, you know, I think you may look for somebody. Now the question is, if you're working in the private sector and you have the skill set and capacity to be potentially on a short list for a city manager job, you're probably pretty darn qualified and making some good money on your own. And if you're working in the private sector, the university sector, or the nonprofit sector, and you're talented, why would you leave your current gig for this one when you know, A, it's short term, B, the last 2 interims have quit, and then 2 other people who were offered the gig, Sammy Sanders and Mark Woolley, turned it down. I mean, in the last year, we had JB, John Blair, resign, interim. Chip Boyle, CB, resign, interim. Job offered to Sam Sanders. He said, no way, Jose, I don't want that job. And Mark Woolley take the job and then declined before his first day on the gig. I don't know, man. If you're in the private sector and you're making bank, you're probably not going to take this gig and leave your private sector job. That's just me. And another thing, if I'm, you know, and you guys know I'm running for Albemarle County Board of Supervisors, but if you're one of these counselors that's named in these lawsuits, you may consider getting your own legal counsel. You very well may consider getting your own legal counsel if you're one of these counselors that's getting sued. Because this is pretty serious. I mean, you got some pretty serious attention on you right now. All right, that's the program. Tomorrow's show is going to be good. Tomorrow, we're going to tell you the story of IMBS Inc., a medical billing services company in this town. We'll have the founder of the company, Ida Thornton, and her daughter-in-law, who's running a lot of the day-to-day on the show tomorrow, and another one of their team members. The business was started 24 years ago in Ida's basement. And now it's one of the best medical billing services company in the community. Women-owned business that is the kind of entrepreneurial journey, the American dream type of journey that I love to highlight on this show. So tomorrow, Ida, Carrie Thornton on the program spotlighting IMBS Inc. We very much encourage you guys as well to get your tickets to the Winter Wonder event at the Boar's Head Resort. J-Dubs, you got that URL you can put on screen? It's all over our social media. I Love CVille social media. Follow I Love CVille Instagram. We have the third largest Instagram in the community behind UVA in the city of Charlottesville. This Winter Wonder event that's going on at the Boar's Head Resort is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. They light up a lot of the grounds at the Boar's Head, like beautiful thousands, tens of thousands of lights. And we're able to walk around and experience the grounds, take photos, enjoy it on date night, family and friends. It's pretty epic. The URL's on screen. Shoot, if you can get it on screen one more time for us. You keep it in on there? Thanks, J-Dubs. It's on screen now. That's the program, guys. Crazy times in local gov. My name is Jerry Miller for Dave Norris. This is the I Love CVille Show. We wish you the best afternoon, guys. Take care.